We acknowledge the original owners of the land on which we podcast, whose stories were told for thousands of years. Today, we are recording in Meanjin. We pay our respects to elders past and present who may be listening. Sovereignty was never ceded. A quick note before we get started that there may be some swearing in today's podcast. If you don't like swearing or usually listen with children in the car, you have been warned. This episode of What in the NDIS Now is brought to you by Astalty. Astalty is the software solution for NDIS professionals built by NDIS professionals. Astalty is my go-to software, and Astalty is trusted and loved by hundreds of other NDIS providers. I love how easy it is to use and how it keeps all my participant information, notes, and invoicing all in one place, available to me anytime from any device. Sign up now for your 14-day free trial. Head to astalty.com.au to sign up now. See for yourself how much easier managing all your NDIS business needs are by using Astalty. Thanks again to Astalty for sponsoring today's episode. You're listening to What in the NDIS Now, a podcast where I, Hannah Redford, and my friend Sam Rosenbaum interview participants and providers about all things NDIS. Hi Sam, how are you going?
I'm going well, Hannah. Yourself?
Really well. Today on the podcast, we're doing something a little different.
I know I am very super excited for this.
Yeah, so we've got a participant of the NDIS by the name of Riki who contacted me because she loves the podcast and she wanted to talk about her journey on the NDIS. So all the way from Melbourne, welcome to the podcast, Riki.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure being here today. You're such an absolutely beautiful bunch of people, and I absolutely love what you do. So
thank
you so
much,
and thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
So as we always start the show, where did you grow up?
I was born in Melbourne. I was actually born at the Essendon District Hospital, which is now a nursing home in Moonee Ponds. Moved up to Shepparton when I was around 7, and I did my schooling and education up in the country there. And I moved back down to Melbourne with mum and dad when I was 22, 23.
Ah, fantastic.
Another Melbourneite on the podcast.
Yes. Melburnian.
We've just got to get you to move up here.
Well, hopefully one day I'll have the money to be able to fly up and come and give you a great big cuddle in person.
Fantastic.
How does that sound?
Great. So, how did you get into the disability sector?
Well, I've already mentioned that I was born at the Essendon District Hospital. I had a very traumatic birth and I had 2 convulsions within the first 12 hours of birth and a cerebral brain hemorrhage. And I've had a vision impairment all of my life. I was in a humidity crib for 10 days. Obviously, with all the pressure on my head, I had not enough oxygen at birth, and then I ended up with too much. And my mum and dad were told, your daughter's not going to walk, she's not going to talk. And mum's like, you don't know my daughter.
So what does that mean for you now? What is daily life like? And I think before we got started, we did have a really good conversation and you were talking about things like how you find it a little slow in your processing, but you're you're quite sharp. Even if it's a bit slow, you got it. And
Yeah.
and then talk about some of the challenges that you have.
Well, having a vision impairment, I cannot drive. I am reliant on people to drive me around. Not having a paid job, it is near impossible to actually be able to afford cabs. My mum and dad and my family live across the other side of town, and it is such a challenge just to be able to afford cabs. It certainly is not safe for me to catch public transport.
What happens on public transport?
Well, I have been in a situation where I've seen a guy in a suit, obviously a professional businessman, roll up his sleeve and inject himself in his arm. I would say that that would not be an insulin injection, that would be a drug one. I've seen other people yell and scream and carry on the trains. I find that people are very reluctant with the chivalry and to give up seats. They expect me to sit sideways. They expect me to sit backwards. They're like, this seat is vacant, that's vacant, da 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 da. And I need to be sitting forward on the train. It's near impossible for me to get on sometimes because people always. So it's really hard to sometimes make space for people to let them on and off. More so when I'm getting off, more than when I'm getting on, because I always believe that it's when you're getting on, you let the people getting off first. But this does not always happen, and I cannot stand up before the train or the tram, the vehicle, has actually finished moving, and the vehicles can be that full and chock-a-block where I cannot move, and everybody else has the physical ability to make way and be ready to get off, and I'm not. So by the time I get to the door, people are already getting on, or the doors can be shut, and then it can continue on to the next station, and I can miss my stop entirely, which happens quite often. I go to Jigsaw, which is in Abbotsford, and I've lost count of the amount of times that I've planned to get off at Victoria Park Station, and the train has continued to go to Clifton Hill, and I've had to go back. It's extremely frustrating navigating myself around in public. The amount of times that the trains do not even have the audio announcements. And it happens. You would think in today's society that the audio announcements are mandatory,
Yeah.
but there are times where the announcements just aren't happening. And that is extremely frustrating. The dangers of walking to my house, to the public stop, like the train, tram, bus stop, what have you. I am an absolute danger to myself. The amount of times I've almost got myself run over by a car, I have been hit by a car, several cars. I do not cross the road safely at all.
It's not like Melbourne makes it very easy, especially with people in your situation, especially the trams, because some of those trams are very narrow entrance ways, and
Exactly.
don't have, anyone that hasn't been to Melbourne, they don't always have pedestrian crossings. There's not a light or a stop sort of point. It's like run at your own risk to try and get on board of the tram and hope
Exactly.
that someone isn't walking off at the same time.
And then a lot of the trams still aren't flat platform. Some of them still have the 3 stairs, which is really hard for me as well, especially the 59 that goes from Airport West into the city through Essendon and Moonee Ponds, etc., etc. Essendon train station, the train is so much higher than the platform. I have to grab somebody's arm to help me safely get down. Luckily, I'm as bold as I am because I asked, like I'm like, but the fact is, I still don't feel safe. I still need the support and the companionship of a support worker. I do not have a lot of friends. The few friends I do have live with disabilities themselves and predominantly can't drive. So transportation to my place or to their place or to meet somewhere yet again is a challenge yet again in itself, because people with disabilities have different or their own support needs. And that's the reality that we are living. You know, I figure like I'm not the only one living an isolated life where I'm not out there physically mingling with people, because if I'm in this situation, there must be so many more. And the NDIS or the NDIA, they need to recognise that. You know, it's frustrating that they read all these reports, all this information, and they are providing plans that are so significantly underfunded.
And
Thank you.
I remember one of the issues you raised with me was that your funding was recently decreased pretty significantly. And so
This is correct.
you've talked about really well, in fact, talked about how hard it is to get around Melbourne, whether that's public transport or with taxis or however. What are some of the other difficulties of not having enough funding for support workers?
Besides socially community access, there's the cleaning and the support needed around the house. There is going to and from appointments. With the amount of medical conditions that I have, I'm continually going to medical appointments. Besides my vision loss, I also have a medical condition called Turner syndrome, which is part of my cognitive deficit. People with Turner syndrome can have heart defects, high blood pressure, underactive thyroid, cognitive deficits, hearing loss, fertility issues, among many others. So there's so many appointments I have to go to, whether it's an ophthalmologist for my eyes, whether it's having hearing tests, whether it's going to the Turner Syndrome Clinic at Monash in Clayton, whether it's going to the women's clinic at the Royal Women's Hospital. There just seems to be appointment after appointment after appointment.
With all those appointments, it makes it hard to have a job too.
It does, absolutely. And financially, like I was saying, I'm so restricted as to my community access because I'm so busy paying bills, keeping a roof over my head, that anything outside the necessities, food, water, shelter, etc., is, yeah, it's just not a viable option to be able to have other things.
With all those appointments and the funding sort of caps that you've got within your NDIS plan that don't necessarily meet, I'm sure that you've had some points where you've had to decide, and I go see friends and family or go do something access and fun or address isolation versus having to go to those medical appointments.
Well, yes, I've had to sacrifice a lot of medical appointments just so I could spend time doing some social things. Let me add that I've got literally one quarter of the core support funding that is actually required for my plan. It needs to at least triple to quadruple.
Yeah. And so you're working with your support coordinator at the moment to try to figure that out, aren't you?
We are deciding whether to go for a change of circumstance or whether to go to the AAT. We do know that either way, we need to get more reports and more information. We actually have had issues with OTs and the Turner Syndrome Clinic elaborating on the information and the needs that I have. So, yes, it might not be all the NDIA's fault for the decision that they have made. And we have got a new OT, in fact, a couple of OTs on board that will be coming from two different angles, and hopefully we'll be able to work together very well. So we've got the vision side of things and the women's side of things without being too crude or saying anything too much, but the fact is, whether you're a woman or a man, everybody has sexuality stuff that does need to be addressed. I suppose that's normal stuff. And with me, with my Turner syndrome, it's quite a significant part of my life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to pick up on there's a couple of things I want to pick up on what you've said. This is such a great conversation and I'm really enjoying it.
Thank you.
I wonder, how does it feel to have to constantly answer OTs after OTs and give lots of different people kind of your life story all over again?
Extremely frustrating. One of the annoying things about the NDIA, NDIS, what have you, is that every time you go for a review, you have to start from scratch. Your previous information and reports don't get acknowledged, and they need to understand that in many cases, not all, I don't want to generalize too much, but I'm not the only person in the boat of having well, the point of the NDIS is the fact that you do have a permanent disability. It's not the fact that, oh, yeah, well, I've broken my arm, so therefore I'm going on the NDIS temporarily. They let us know that, they're there for lifelong long conditions. And the fact is, the support that I started getting 5 years ago was actually not quite too bad. But now The plan I've got is the worst that I've actually ever have, and I think a lot of it is also based on the fact that they're like, oh, capacity building. Once you've had a certain amount of support from support workers, you're able to do things in life on your own. They're not recognising the fact that that's not the case. And they've actually made my life easier in the fact that when I was initially on the NDIS, I did have supports to make cooking easier in the house, to have like the cleaning, to be able to go to appointments and have like community access and what have you. But now they're cracking down. Like, what do they all of a sudden expect me to be able to see? And all of a sudden, I'm just going to have a license? I don't think so. And, it took me years to fight to get level 3 transport. I initially started on level 1, went to level 2, worked my way up to level 3. Then what did they do? They shot me back down to level 1. I've only just got back up to level 2. But the fact is, when you're legally blind and you can't drive, whether you're a job searcher or not, which I am a job seeker, and they're not recognising that really, I should be able to get level 3 transport. And the 7-8 months that I spent being $70 down a fortnight because they weren't adequately funding me in the transport, let alone in the core supports. This is disgusting. And I just don't. They're just not comprehending people's life situations. They are not comprehending people's individual life situations. Not just me, but people.
You brought up a really good point about sexuality, because I do know it is a bit of a hot topic, because of course we know people with disabilities still have sexual needs, and
Yes,
that
they do.
sometimes, well, the NDIS really is pretty bad at understanding that and supporting that. What do you think you would like to see happen in terms of participants being able to get support to explore sexuality and things like that?
I think that people have the rights to have sex, whether they're dating someone or not. There needs to be a lot more opportunity with disability dating apps for people to be able to get out there and spend time together. Yes, it can be a bit of a challenge when people with disabilities, such as myself, can't drive and we have like the mobility issues that we do have. But I think that we do have the right to be able to date, and we also have the right to feel comfortable within our skin no matter what conditions that we actually have in life, sexually or otherwise. And I think that the NDIS need to recognise that the disabilities that people are living with can be caused from a medical condition, but the medical condition causes us disability attributes, and that they can't just say, no, this is a medical condition, you've got to go through the medical system. I think it's not recognised enough how debilitating and disabling medical conditions actually can be, and the medical system is so overrun and under-resourced, it hasn't got the capacity to be able to address the disabling aspects of what's going on in somebody's life.
Absolutely. And so many doctors and nurses, they don't actually get trained in how to be a doctor to someone with a disability. And so they can really misunderstand what is happening and misunderstand symptoms and issues and treat people with disabilities pretty badly.
Absolutely. I remember listening to one of your podcasts where there was a non-verbal, beautiful lady who was in the hospital, and they bound her down and did stuff against her will, and they were saying, well, we've been doing this for 30 years, we know what we're doing. I'm like, no, that is actually assault, 100,000%. In fact, that episode actually made me cry.
Oh, yeah. I think we were just about crying when we were trying to make it. When we were
Yeah, that was
recording it, that's the word.
yeah,
And you know,
it was a strong episode.
the lack of respect is just disgusting in life sometimes, and people just go down the clinical route, you know, the textbook. Oh yeah, do. Textbook doesn't fit everybody. Why do you think even as parents and children there's no manual as to how to raise kids? Because not only are children's personalities individual and different, the parents' personalities, values, and the way that they interpret life is different too. So people need to realise there is no real rule book to humanity except be kind and be love and respect people's decision, and nobody medically, politically, socially, nobody has the right to govern anybody's choices or anybody's freedom and way of life. And we've lost the way to listen. Whether you're verbal or not, we have lost the way to listen in life.
That was going to be my next sort of question for you around when we're talking part of in the lead up to this, you're talking about the treatment of support workers to clients and listening to clients. Do you want to give us a bit of your experience with that, and also if you've got any good examples of when people have listened and how people can listen better?
I think in the majority of cases, support workers have been pretty good at listening. I remember with one of my support workers, one of the first things I educated them on, in they were very new in the support work industry, and I'm like, you know, you've got to listen to your clients. Does that really, really well. But then you have support workers who do think that they know it all, and they are absolutely adamant that their way is the right way and aren't prepared to take on your choice of having things done at all. And that can be really, really tough and hard. So I have a philosophy in life, right? We're all equally teachers as we are students, and we need to be here in life to teach, to learn, and to play. Because if you haven't got the play, then clearly you're doing something very, very wrong. And whenever I go to jigsaw or in whatever working in environment, I'm like, the advice for the day, work hard, play harder. Because if you're not satisfied in what you're doing, and I'm very open to listening to people. I might agree to disagree, but at least I will listen. I will have an open mind to their point of view. And sometimes when people are so dogmatic that it's their way or the highway, whether you're living with a disability or not, that can be really, 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 really frustrating. And, if that was one thing that someone gets out of today's podcast, to teach, to learn, and to play, and that we're all equally students as we are teachers, then I think I've done something right, because life is school, not just when you're at school getting your education. Life is school. And unfortunately, there's no second chance. There's no dress rehearsal. We're going to fuck up, make mistakes and fall over. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. And you need to be kind and to forgive yourself and go, hey, you know what? I actually own the fact that I got this one wrong. And that is more than okay. And it's about people who forgive you and stand by you when you make your mistakes, where you actually learn who your tribe actually are.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love what you've said there. And I just want to ask, when you say you party hard, what sorts of things do you like to do that is partying hard?
Go out to gigs, to music events, and sing, dance, and carry on. When I go to gigs, I call it dance exercise. I'm actually quite a big woman, but when I dance exercise, I'm actually exercising at the same time, burning the calories. Traditional exercise is not my jam. If you're going to exercise, do something you actually enjoy doing.
It's a great one there.
So besides dancing, if you like to go swimming, I actually would need to make time to actually start to go swimming again, doing some aqua work, going for walks, yoga, all that kind of
And more
stuff.
dancing.
And more dance. Life is too short not to dance.
What are some of your favourite songs to dance to?
Oh, anything 80s. Give me anything Bon Jovi, Poison, Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Rat, just all of that stuff. White Snake, Cinderella, all of that hard rock type of stuff from the 80s. The rock to the ballads. Back in the 80s, they actually sung, and it wasn't just crap words. Like, they actually bloody understand life. The good, the bad, the trauma, the love, You know what? I can honestly say about John Bon Jovi, he didn't just save my life, he saved me from myself.
Why is that? How is that?
Just what he had to say, what he stands for, just being able to resonate. I know it sounds really bizarre, but without meeting the man, but it's like mind, heart and soul. It's like he's my bloody soulmate. I just understand him, even though he doesn't know me from a bar of soap.
Well, music
People
does have a profound
say,
effect on you, on everyone differently.
people say if you really want to get to know someone, listen to what they listen to their music, because then you'll get a deeper understanding of their personality and who they are. And I think there's so much truth in that.
Oh, I'd hate to know what my playlist says about me.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Although at the moment, mine's a very eclectic mix of Latin dance, pop, hip hop, and everything in between. So who knows? But I do love my dancing. So
Latin, how good would it be to learn to salsa and to rumba and cha-cha? I should do some dancing lessons, baby.
do it. I go every Tuesday, and then out dancing on Sunday nights.
Give me the funding, NDIS!
It's a lot of fun. It's great. It's
Give
great
me
dance
the
exercise.
Now, is there anything that you really wanted to say that we haven't said yet?
I am really not safe on my own. I've had quite a few incidences that keep on reoccurring. I need support with cooking because I burn myself, I cut myself, I am terrible at chopping and cutting, and it takes me 10 times longer to get something done as it does a support worker. They make my life so much easier. I know my house like the back of my hand. I still, with my lack of spatial awareness, bang into walls and all of that kind of stuff. I've banged my head on oven trays. I've burnt my fingers on the oven. I struggle setting up the printer or anything to Wi-Fi. I can't change globes and cartridges and all of that kind of stuff. I even struggle undoing knots in my shoelaces. My ability to bend down and to even dress can be very much a challenge for me. I even have a bidet in my home. Thank you. That's one thing you did get right, NDIS. So that I continually have a clean bum. But yes, it can be a bit of a challenge when I'm out in public and you unintentionally get caught unawares and you've got to go to the loo for a number 2. And I will not apologise for TMI because I genuinely believe that the NDIA and that society need to be aware that these are some of the issues that people with disabilities actually can have. I've had inappropriate taxi drivers that have tried to make passes at me. I haven't seen people walking down ramps. I get lost in shopping centres. My orientation and mobility is terrible, whether I have training through the Vision Australia or otherwise. I can get very, very lost. I can't read street signs. I can't read menus in Cafes, people aren't printing out menus anymore. Anything over a metre away is far too hard. If I'm watching sport or anything written on the tally, I can't read scores, I can't read subtitles. So I certainly can't be watching shows like that. I do watch shows with AD, with the audio description. Sometimes that makes it easier, but being 4'9", trying to reach things in a supermarket, trying to read prices, trying to read products, trying to find products and aisles, it is absolutely agonizing, and I really, really struggle. Even trying to organize cabs. Sometimes I can ring a cab 3-4 times. The amount of times that cabs have been cancelled on me, I can be waiting an hour and a half, 2 hours for cabs sometimes. It's not even just about the cost of cabs being too expensive. It's waiting for the cabs. It's the fact that they can overcharge, like they take like the longest route, or they find a way to get more out of you, whether
Turn the
they
meter
try
off.
to I know, it's, and I don't even realize until they've actually, you know, and then, they get lost and they apologize that they've taken the wrong way and that the GPS has made things wrong. And I'm wondering whether they're just manipulating things for someone who is vulnerable and can be taken advantage in life. And that's why it's so important that I have the safety of support workers.
So, you've just brilliantly described a lot of scenarios that a lot of people may not think of needing support workers to support them through those scenarios. I was thinking also of, I know at some point through our conversation, you've talked about how there are times when the NDIS is good and you're very grateful for the NDIS. So I wonder if you've got any positive stories of the NDIS.
Well, funding permitted, I do have support workers who can take me out to music gigs on the weekend. I do have my cleaning service. I which is, they're the two main things that I want to keep in order. And then there's also going to the appointments and all of that kind of stuff. But we will work all that kind of stuff. It's been great actually having support workers help me with my cooking. So after we go and do the shopping, the groceries, we go back home and we work together, and they will do the chopping. I'll get out the pots and pans and the chopping boards and what have you, and I will stir the onion and the meat or whatever, and we do teamwork. I love to explore my cooking. One thing I would really like to stress to the NDIS/NDIA is the fact that without these supports, I would not have the standard of living that I actually do have. And with my supports, my hours being slashed, I haven't got the funding to be able to sustain the quality of life. And I feel that I will deteriorate without the supports. The NDIA need to recognise, because so much is focused on capacity building. I'm going to yell and scream right now. Fact. People's disabilities cannot necessarily changed and improved through capacity building. I feel that a lot of disabilities have the opportunity to have their quality of life sustained or maintained in an adequate way. That is an ongoing, lifelong situation that people are living in. If anything else, people's situations and their disabilities are going to deteriorate. I don't mind working with a team, with my support workers, and doing things together. But if those supports are taken away, they will not be able to be done at all. And my mental state will deteriorate. It will make me more isolated than I already am. My house will be filthy. There's so many side effects of giving somebody supports for a period of time and then whipping them away from under their feet, because that's not how people's disabilities work, especially when the NDIS acknowledge that they're only dealing with people who have lifelong conditions.
It's like on Sky News a couple of months back. They had on Peter Credlin, where she was going on about that the number of children leaving the NDIS under the age of 12 was only 4%. And you just can't fathom the idea of why you think that someone in that age bracket, just with a plan to get that kind of support, would be expected to leave the NDIS before the age of 12. And at the same time, it goes on with what you're saying, like where you've got these debilitating disabilities that are not going to go away no matter how much capacity we want to build. There's no way we can build your capacity to make turners go away or get your vision back. It's beyond belief sometimes when we're having this conversation. So I do have to say that
bewildering.
I do have to say that it's good to see some of the stuff coming out of the NDIS review that is addressing some of these key points. And some of our good old friend, Minister Shorten, he's sort of been talking about this too, but it's coming too late for a lot of people. It's caused a lot of traumatizing people having to have these conversations over and over again.
It really, really is. And this is why the NDIA need to be more streamlined. I believe that one of your questions towards the end is, where would you like to see the NDIS go into the future?
That is it.
I was about to ask you that.
I will answer that right now. 2 points. Number one, to acknowledge the fact that people living with disabilities do not necessarily have the ability to capacity build, and that these conditions are lifelong, where they need these supports ongoing until they pass. The other place I want to see where I want to see the NDIA go is that every time you go for a review, you're not starting from scratch with new OT reports and reports from this person and that person, and all the information starts from fresh. I think we need to have a record where we can keep accessing the previous reports and only go for a review when circumstances have changed, having reviews and getting new plans when nothing has changed, and because you're starting from scratch, you're at risk of actually getting worse plans than you previously have, such as myself.
There are some very great points.
if you want to see change based on our awesome conversation with Riki here, please email Bill Shorten. And if you would like to contact Riki, please email me or Sam and we can put you in contact with her.
So thank you so much, Riki, for coming on today. We've absolutely loved this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been such a good conversation and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. I very much appreciate you having me on.
And we love hearing from our fans as well. So anyone listening, feel free to hit us up or hit our Patreon account. Message us about any other ideas. Please feel free to email us on the email that's in our show notes.
Until next time, see ya.
Huzzah!
Bye.
See you later.
Thank you for listening. Please share with people you know. Until next time, as the Green Brothers say, don't forget to be awesome.